Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Race 2 of Season 9 of the European Racing Organisation. My name is David Booker. I'm your commentator for the Xbox Origin crossplay lobby. We've got drivers from Xbox, drivers from Origin, drivers from Steam, and even looking in the future with drivers from PlayStation as well. So the true crossplay lobby can be found here at 7 o'clock on a Saturday. This week we'll be racing at Japan. We are just waiting for the final drivers to join into the lobby, and we'll be right back with you with the action. So, here we do go. We have a reduced lobby this week, including last week's pretty dominant race winner in the Williams. So, it's anybody's race as we get ready for the qualifying session here in Japan. Waiting for everyone just to load in, and then we will be right in the thick of the action. I hope we're all doing well on this Saturday. Do let me know in the comments how your weekend is going and who it is that you're following in this particular race. As we go to the paddock, and the green light is open for qualifying here. So there's 9, there's a 10th racer just joining in now as well. But let's see who will be the first to leave the pits and set their initial lap. The first person we do get out, we will be following them around. As we keep an eye, no action yet in the first 30 seconds. It does look like there's some movement here from the Alfa Romeo of Matej, looking to set his lap time early. While we are just getting everything up and running here, we'll get everything moving forward. So we will stay with Matt Edge throughout this first lap. See what benchmark can be set. He had a bit of a fruitful race last week. Ended up in a little bit of a tangle going through the technical start of Sector 2 in Bahrain. But did manage to work his way through the field towards the end, earning himself... Oh, I do apologise. Earning himself a good P3 finish. So if you can carry that forward, you can certainly be looking for the podium this week. So as he's just coming around the last couple of sections before entering the Casio Triangle, let's hop on board with Matt Edge, see what time he's looking to be set on this opening lap, see what banker he can put up here. So we have a flag in Sector 3 as people are just looking for space, but away we go. So approaching the first curve here at the Suzuka circuit. Drops down, misses the apex slightly, but we'll see how he can... Oh, big snap of oversteer there. But we'll see how we get on through the S's. Is he continuing on this lap? Looks to be so. Again, a little bit nervy on the S's, but now going through the Dunlop curve before approaching this double right-hander. And heading under the bridge up to the hairpin at the top of the hill. Always an interesting braking zone, this one. Again, one of the ones that can be a little bit slippy coming out of it. Let's see how he gets on the power. Nice and smoothly. Obviously just looking to get a good banker lap in here. As he heads down through turn 12 up to the spoon curve at 13 and 14. And then heads down towards the end of the lap here. Should be flat left-hander before approaching that Casio Triangle. Brakes nice and hard. We're going through the last few corners here and looking to go across the line in 1:29.7 there for Matt Edge. So we do have a opening lap on. Crush 50 did seem to lose a little bit of ground. But Charlo in the other Alfa Romeo does get within 2/10 of his teammate. As we look a little bit further down, we do have a spinner there, I believe. Mistake possibly from one of the Ferraris. Clapper goes into P3 with his opening lap. Next across, I believe we have a negated lap followed by one of the Ferraris in P3, Eric. And we have NJ Phoenix coming across the line, or starting his out lap now. Next across the line will be Win and Tech, but that is a negated lap. After him will be Fitter Crimea. He's coming into the pits without setting a time. So obviously he's not too happy with regards to that there. As we go and try and have a look, there were a couple of yellow flags there. Unsure if Matt Edge is on another lap. Doesn't appear to be. Potentially charging up that battery for another try. So we'll keep an eye on everyone as we do go through. He's got flags in Sector 1 and 2. And that's a retirement. Max Chicon in the McLaren has come a cropper there at the Dunlop curve. So it's a retirement without setting a time in qualifying here. So it's definitely not the start that he would have wanted. Just trying to pick up on where the next lap would be. We have another negated lap from the Haas. Bentialo looking to be cruising to head back to the pits. We have Clapper here also just cruising around, potentially recharging up. No, definitely not recharging up for another try, so he'll certainly be heading back there. We're still keeping an eye on who is around, who's on a lap. Potentially from Phoenix here, starting a lap, or just finishing one of his laps. So 1:32.6. Just put him in P6 for now, but certainly needs to get that improved. The majority of the runners here looking at 1:29s. So potentially we could be looking at the lower 129s as this qualifying does go on. But let's see how we end up going here. So again, just keeping an eye now on where the next lap will be coming from. We have Camille with a negated lap here. Will he be looking to set off on a second? No, he heads into the pits as well. So yeah, it's always that little bit of a lull around this time. Let's have a look. We do have a couple of outlaps going on with Winantec here in the Ferrari and Crimea in the Alpha Tauri. So we will stick with these two. It looks like these will be the next to go. But here we are with Crimea just slightly ahead on track of the Ferrari on its particular outlap. As I do quickly just look to bring up chat. I hope, again, we are all doing well. But coming round the spoon curve here into the final sector and then looking to get his flying lap started with around, probably will be around 10 minutes to go in this qualifying session. As we see that a lot coming out for their second attempts here now. Going around the Casio triangle, we will hop on board with Crimea just to see how we do get on this lap. Looking to set a time after not doing on the first one. But across the start-finish line and away we do go. Approaching the first of the curves here. And then entering this very technical S curves. Can certainly catch a lot of people out. As we saw with Max earlier in the McLaren. Heading towards the center of these S curves. Doing nice and smoothly there before going around the Dunlop curve. Getting the power down for these next double right-hander at the Degner curve there. Then heading under the bridge and up the hill towards the hairpin. Good first sector going purple there. Certainly looking to continue that on as he does go a little bit deep in that hairpin. Hopefully he's not lost too much time there. He's going now against the sweeping right-handers before he enters the spoon curve, which is corners number 13 and 14 here. And then we have that long straight, that flat left-hander coming up at the end of this as well before entering into the Casio triangle. But let's try and have a look at that sector time. See if he can go purple again. Doesn't appear to be, but 113 still could be good. Still, again, looking for this initial banker lap into the triangle, out of the triangle, and then through, down, power down across the finish line in a 130.6. Definitely a good start, but certainly lost some time throughout that lap, but does get a P5. We have Winantec just in behind in a 130.5. So two very similar laps from the Ferrari and the Alpha Tauri there. In fact, it was showing Winantec going purple in that final sector there. So definitely pace dotted around. As we try and find the next lap. Could be Matt Edge here in the... who's already in the lead, looking to improve on his 129.7. Did appear like he was up in the first sector. Indeed, he's 4/10 up. Going into the third sector. Not too much to worry about here, as long as you can get the braking on for the Casio triangle, right? Takes that corner a lot of curb on those, but does get the power down. Is he going to be able to carry it over? See 27, 28, 29.2. Does increase his lead. He's got 7/10 gap now on his teammate Vencialo, but certainly looking good for the Alfa Romeos at the moment. If we look around now, we do have a Ferrari of Eric coming across. He's slightly down on his time, I believe, and that's definitely invalidating a lap and heading into the pits. Vencialo now just behind him on track. Just completing an outlap by the looks of it and looking to get going on his. So we'll stick with Vencialo here in the second Alfa Romeo. See if he can close that gap to his teammate. He's looking to find 7/10 of a second, or almost 3/4 of a second here, going through around the first curve, approaching the S curves now. It's one of those sections that you do want to carry as much speed as possible without losing the back end. Can certainly be tricky, but does appear to be hugging the inside quite nicely. Then round this Dunlop curve, runs it nice and wide there, carrying the speed through now into the Dagger curve. Nicely done. Runs a little bit wide there, does invalidate there. Always a dangerous one if you take too much curve on the inside. As we look around at who else is completing a lap, Clapper is just coming into the pits from P4. We have the Haas of Crush 50 here. Potentially looking to head into the pits from the looks of things. That's an interesting line to try and do so. Trying to save as much time as possible by the looks of things. As we are all back into the pits now. Just waiting to get this final run. Fortunate there for Venchalux, who did have a good first sector there. But will certainly look to negate those mistakes. As he should be heading into the pits. To quickly change those tyres and get out for one final run. Indeed he is. So let's have a quick look at who is going to be heading out first. It looks like we've got action slightly up the pit lane with, who would that be? I believe that's the Alpha Tauri. It is. So we will go on board or watch Fitter Crimea run his last attempt to move up the grid with just over 5 minutes left of the session. Let's follow him round on his outlap and see what time he will be looking for. But we do have currently the Alfa Romeos of Matej and Vencalo leading the way. A 129.2 from Matej gives him a big 3/4 of a second gap to his teammate, but it does lock out that front row currently for Alfa Romeo. In third, we have Eric in the Ferrari. We have Clapper then in the Red Bull. We have Winantec in the second Ferrari. Fitter Crimea, who we're with at the moment in the Alpha Tauri in P6. Camel in the Aston Martin in P7. NJ Phoenix in the Alpha Plus 50 in 9th in the Haas. And then unfortunately Max Chicon, who was looking okay but did retire. We do have a potential accident here as we look to see what's gone on with Clapper here. And has he lost a front wing there? Coming up, he certainly looks to be doing, so there'll be no improvement from Clapper. Will stay, that's on his outlap as well, so he's going to have to get his skates on to get back to the pits in order to get that replaced. But like I said, we'll stick with Chimera, sorry, here to ensure or to see what his final attempt will get him. So starting his lap now, going full send down towards this first curve. The right-hander, we will go on board with him as we go around this first curve and approach the S curves now. Looking to carry that pace all the way through. It's that nicely, just keeping an eye to see if we do see any little snaps of oversteer. But does appear to be going through these neat and tidily. Before a pro going round the Dunlop curve, running it wide so we can get to the Dagger corner here at the right-hander. Takes a lot of curve there and actually invalidates his lap. So there'll be no improvements yet from Fitter Crimeas. We do have a crash on the S curve with the Haas of Crush 50 going out. So he will be no better than P9. So that is row 5 locked out there. As we will go back now to the Ferrari of Winantec, I believe, who's on his outlap on track. We have Camelons in the Aston Martin, who is on a lap, I believe. So we do have a push lap here. Let's see where we are on sector times. So he's half a tenth up on his time, I believe. Runs a little bit wide on that second right-hander running up to the hairpin. Let's see if he can get that very wide on the apex there. Does mean that the power is down a lot later. But we will see how we do get on heading up to the spoon curve here now. At the top of this long straight. Does need to just take off a little. Misses the apex again there. Not the cleanest lap here from Camel. But certainly be looking to at least improve that time. Close that gap to Chimera in front. As we have a look at that sector time. 1/10 up. So is closing the gap, but he's still going to be a second behind. Let's see where we are through the Casio triangle here. Doesn't take anywhere near as much curb as we've seen people taking, but we have a look at the time. It's a 1:31.1. So he's 5/10 up on his final time. Definitely gained a lot there in that final sector. Still in P7. As we have another fastest lap here from Matej. Slightly bettering his time. So still at 1:29.2. But making it a 1:29.21. We look back at Phoenix here. Are they just finishing a lap? Oh, he's just starting their lap. Is NJ Phoenix. Next to go across the line, I believe, will be Vencialo, who's looking to ready himself up for his final attempt at a lap. Approaching the Casio triangle now. The next flying lap. Eric is looking to charge up. Winantech potentially looking to charge up here as well, or is this a push lap for him? Let's see what the times are like at the end of this straight for Sector 2. As we head to the last 40 seconds here of the qualifying session. As he goes across, doesn't invalidate, but a lot more curb taken than what we saw from Camelons there. Does cut across, trying to take that short distance to the line. A 1:30.6 does not improve on his time, so he will likely start at best in P5. We look at Camel in now currently at P7. He's heading straight into the pits. Clapper currently in 4th, looking to start his... Is he going to have time for that? Just has enough time, so we know that Clapper will be the last person to set a time. Almost perfect time in there for him. As we see Matej happy with his amount there. Looks like Vencialo has backed off. Maybe an error. We have Eric in the Ferrari looking to have made a mistake. NJ Phoenix crossing the line and not improving on his position. So I do believe the only person we have out on track potentially here, unless Vencialo was just in a really high gear there for some reason. Let's keep an eye on his time. Yes, 13 seconds down there, so we won't see an improvement. So let's stay on board with Clapper here. He should be the only person now to improve on his lap. Did improve in that first sector. As we head up towards the spoon curve, turns 13 and 14 in just a second. If we can take these cleanly, he'll certainly be looking to close down that gap, potentially starting in the top 3. And can he break up the Alfa Romeo front row that we have going on at the moment? Let's have a look at this time. You're looking to be about half a second here if he's going to do that. 0.8 of a second up. Certainly good for P2. Is he going to challenge Matej here to take pole position as he enters the Casio triangle to finish the lap? He's looking to make sure it's nice and clean that gets that power down. Sticks to the right hand side to take the shortest gap to the curb. The time is a 1:29. Good enough for P2. Breaks up the Alfa Romeo front row. Great final lap. Started at the best place possible with 1 second left on the clock. And there we go. P2 ending that qualifying there by Clapper. So we do have our 10 here. There should be an extra driver joining us, but we do have our top 10 on the grid. We have Matej in the Alfa Romeo, Clapper in the Red Bull, then Charlo in the other Alfa. We then have the 2 Ferraris of Eric and Winantech, Chimera in the Alfa Tauri, Camelons in the Aston Martin, and Jay Phoenix in the Alpine, Crush 50 in the Haas, and then Max Chicon in the McLaren. We'll certainly be looking for a better race than his qualifying, that's for sure, as we do get ready to go towards the grid. No formation lap here, of course. Just looking to avoid some of those issues, known issues that can be there for it. So we will be going straight into the race as soon as everyone has chosen their strategies. As I do just quickly grab a drink, if I'm honest. So here we go now, waiting for the strategies to be chosen before the lights start showing. So 20 seconds now until these red lights will start showing on the grid. We'll see if the Alphas can make a move on the late finishing Red Bull there in qualifying, or whether he can make a move on the Alphas themselves and start to pull away. It's certainly, you know, within a second, within those top four, any one of those can certainly push for the victory here. As we're just waiting for the drivers on the grid, and the lights are starting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we start here with the Japanese Grand Prix here for Xbox Origin. And a good start from the Ferrari from Eric there, getting himself up to P2. But definitely clean and first through the corner will be Matej. We have Eric settling in behind, battling with Clapper, and Vencalo has fallen down. Oh, to be honest, it is just a great start there from Eric. In behind, we don't have too many issues. There might have been an issue there for Chimera, who's dropped right to the back of the pack. We'll certainly be looking to make sure that that is sorted, but everyone's starting to settle in now, going round the curbs as Matej here on this opening lap, looking to open up his gap already over a second to the battling Eric and Clapper in behind as he approaches the hairpin at the top of the hill, looking to keep everything nice and composed. As we try and have a look here at the tyre details that we do have. So we have majoritively medium, but a couple of hard runners here. As we have Matej now looking to stretch this lead over Eric to now 1.6 seconds. We will stick with him over here as Veta Chimera in the Alpha Tauri seems to be having more issues. Dropped to 14 seconds back now, potentially running wide at the opening curve. But we will stick with Matej in this opening lap as he approaches the Casio Triangle. Keeping things nice and neat. I'm finishing the first lap of 27 here. So we have Matej leading by almost 2 seconds now to Eric and the Ferrari in third. Going neck and neck here, we have the Red Bull of Clapper and Alfa Romeo of Vencalo as we approach this opening turn. Closed off from Clapper, but running very wide and spinning. It was a great start from him, making sure that he was staying ahead of those Alphas, but that spin is certainly not going to do him any good. In fact, it does bring Chimera back into touching distance. But we still have the rest of this pack now, going from P2 all the way down to P8. The majority within DRS, but a gap starting to form as we see these front runners starting to pull out. Speaking of which, Matej is definitely pulling away. An early penalty here from Winantec in the Ferrari as well. A 3-second penalty that, if things stay just as tight as they are, certainly hinder him in the long run. As we start to have a look in behind, we have Max Chicon behind again at the Dega curve. Well, the second of the Dega curves there, getting into some issues. It's all going on in behind, that's for sure. Clapper's looking to catch up behind. Eric has taken a spin at the spoon curve in the Ferrari, and it's, you know, we're struggling here just to keep things facing forward. So after all of this chaos that we do have, Matej must be loving his life up at the front in the Alfa Romeo, pulling out a 3.5 second now from his teammate Vencalo in second. We have Winantec in the Ferrari in third, and Phoenix in the Alpine in fourth, with Camilons in the Aston, and Crush 50 and Eric very close in behind. Eric recovering very well to still try and keep up with this pack. But again, we're starting to get separated here. We'll stick with this battle here between the Haas and the Ferrari, as we will have DRS this lap. And Eric looking to stay close and takes advantage of the wide running Haas there, and now we'll have his eyes set on the Aston Martin 4P5 as we look around the rest of the track. Everyone just starting to separate up a little bit, but we do have a retirement here. NJ Phoenix at the Dunlop curve, running so well in the middle of the pack, and unfortunately does become a cropper at the Dunlop curve on lap 3, and we do have our first retirement as we have Vita Chimera in the back as well, taking another spin at the end of the S curves. There's a lot of technical sections here that people seem to be struggling with, but there's one person that has got seems to have everything nailed down at the moment, and that is Matej in the Alfa Romeo out in front. However, Vencalo is definitely closing that gap. Was once 3 seconds, now 2.5. As we try and see what is going on, do we have a virtual safety car? I do believe VSC for that crash from Phoenix. So we will just get a little bit of a lull in the action. And maybe that gap was getting smaller due to the VSC here. Should have noticed that a little bit earlier and got a little less excited. But we do move forward, that's for sure. When we see the VSC ending soon. As we're trying to have a look at the boards. As it's still ongoing at the moment. And DRS back enabled. VSC has ended. And as we see now, it's a 3.5 second lead by Matej over his teammate Vencalo in the Alfa Romeos. As we look up and down the grid, the closest action I can see is Eric starting to close in after that earlier error onto Camille. 1.6 seconds now, the gap between the Aston Martin and the Ferrari. Let's see if he can close that up coming round the Dunlop curve. Round the Dunlop curve. Going down to the Dega curve here, which is turn 8 and then turn 9. As he cuts it very harshly over that curve, but does keep everything together. He is on the hard tyres, so we'll certainly look to not have too many more spins so we can take advantage of that later on. Already, the gap is down to almost a second as he comes around the hairpin turn at the top of the hill. Now heading towards the spoon curve, we do have flags in Sector 1 as it looks like Max Chicon has crashed out of the race. And now we do have a full safety car. This will work into the hands of Chimera in the Alpha Tauri for sure. As he will certainly look to clean up his racing once we do get restarted. Honestly, the Dunlop curve is proving a cropper to a lot of people, both in qualifying and in this particular race. As we see pits coming in for Vencalo from second place. We have exceeding track limits with time penalties here as well. Oh no, everything's going all over. We have Winantec now with penalties. That was the one for Vencalo there as well. Eric has one in the Ferrari. As we try and take account for what we have for everybody here. So 8 seconds of penalties for Eric now. Potentially after cutting the corner too harshly while trying to catch up to the pack. As we look back at the changes, Vencalo on the tyres will potentially look to run these hards till the end of the race, as will Clapper. The Haas have crushed 50 on the mediums. Will be intriguing to see if he can run those till the end of the race. But fully expecting to need to stop again. But we do have a safety car queue. Starting to form now behind Matej and his Alfa Romeo. As he's certainly keeping people fully backed up there. Oh, exciting start to the race. Just trying to keep track of people spinning around, if I'm honest with you. As one of my fellow commentators was saying last year, there's definitely a Beyblade or two going round on this race, it seems like. Well, perfect time to go grab a quick drink if you do need one. As we wait for the pack to catch up to the safety car. Still the first lap around here, so don't expect it to go in just yet. We'll keep an eye on the lights anyway, but I likely will be another lap or two waiting for those two all to catch up. Indeed, it does appear to be staying out. So we will just stay with the pack. There has been another incident here. Let's try and have a look. Not too sure. I seem to not be able to control at the moment. It's just showing a incident here. It's just going along with the safety car here. As everyone has now caught up. It does appear some of the settings may have been incorrect there. It does appear to be. As I do just have a quick check on the chat. It has got broadcast safety car on there, but we will, I think, look to stick with it. We do have a restart here. So Matej will be looking to open up that gap to the Ferrari in behind. As we can see, the two Ferraris now looking not to battle too much with themselves, I hope, as they really do need to get ahead of Matej and open up a gap. We already have another crash in behind with Clapper in the Red Bull on the S-curves. Let's continue on with the race here as we can go through everything in front. So we still have Matej in the lead from the two Ferraris of Eric and Winantec. However, they do need to open up their gap with the penalties that they've got to ensure Vencalo doesn't overtake them, whose stop is looking very nice now on those hards. If he can make those last to the end of the race while still keeping in touch with his teammate, he certainly has a chance at a win today, that's for sure. In behind the close racing here now, 4P4 is from Vencalo, Camelons and Chimera. If Camelons can keep this close before the DRS comes in, it can certainly help, but it appears that Vencalo is starting to drop them behind already 9/10 here. But Chimera is closing that gap down very quickly to Camelons. Again, if he can stay on the back end here before the DRS comes in, it can certainly help him with the overtake. So coming across to start lap 9, we still have Matej, followed by Eric, Winantec, Vencalo, Camelons, Chimera and 50, who are the last 7 runners with the 3 retirements already. Let us see how we do get on as Camelons and Chimera swapping positions here. Certainly wheel-to-wheel racing going round the first curve as we enter the S's now. We see Werhoven crush 50 in behind, just off camera there. Does come up with a crash. We have another safety car. And does that potentially damage a little bit of contact? Yeah, it certainly looks like it's Camelons that's been given a 5-second penalty for the collision, and Winantec multiple corner cutting warnings. So these last 6 positions can certainly be changed up. As you see, yes, Chimera with damage to his front wing. Potential heavy brake check in front has got Camelons a penalty for that as well. Maybe we'll see more pits here from the leader potentially, but we shall see as we go. So yes, it has been. Unfortunately, it is the broadcast safety car, but it will be. We will be continuing on here. That is for sure. But we are down to 6 runners from the starting 10 already, and we're only at lap 9. So we'll see who will be diving into the pits here, and it will be our leader. Matej will be diving into the pits, as will second place Eric. Well, Winantec. Winantec does stay out to avoid the double stack, so it'll be Winantec that'll be leading everyone around, with Vencalo in P2. As we see the rest of the field pitting for new tyres. See, Matej will be coming out then in P3, followed out by Eric in the Ferrari. Camel is looking to serve some of his penalty here, as is Chimera. So we will have Matej in 3, Eric in 4, Camel in 5, and Chimera in 6, completing the last runners that are still going here. Unfortunately, they're Crush unlucky on what went on. I was trying to keep an eye on the battle in front of you. It was slightly off screen. I hope Hope it wasn't too bad for you there, but we are waiting for everyone to catch up. This should continue on in just a moment once everyone has done. Waiting for the last two of Camelon's and Chimera to catch up after clearing their penalties. We can have a look at the penalties that are around at the minute. So as we can see, the two Ferraris carrying 6 and 8 seconds for Winantec and Eric across can certainly play a part in what will happen. Winantec will be looking for a great start to try and pull away from Vencialo, but he does unfortunately still need to pit. Eric, on the other hand, will be looking to keep these medium tyres going for the rest of the race. But we'll just head around with the safety car here and look for a restart and rejoin on lap, potentially lap 11, I believe. Let us see. So here we are. We rejoin it back at the Casio Triangle for potentially the restart in just a lap's time. We'll see where we do end up. As this will be lap 12 as the safety car is coming in this lap. Again, we'll be led out by the Ferrari of Winantec. Let's see where we do get going here. There's the notification. Safety car in this lap. And we'll watch from Matej in third, who will be looking to move up as soon as he can. But we can keep an eye on Eric as well, as these front four are tight going over the line, but will certainly be setting off. Good start there from Winantec. Certainly gets a gap, but Eric immediately on the attack of Matej here. The two that may be at least 1 and 2 on track, if there's any further stops in front of them. But these two Ferrari-powered teams will be now, and certainly appears to be, pulling away from the two cars left behind. As we'll stay on board with Eric in the Ferrari, looking to make these medium tyres work sooner rather than later. We do have an overtake behind from the Alpha Tauri of Chimera, and we do have a yellow flag. Who would that be? It's Winantec from the lead, losing his front wing. And it just releases everybody in front. In fact, Matej going up into P1. You take the eyes off the action here for 1 second, and everything switches around as Matej retakes the lead with Vencialo in second. Eric in third in the Ferrari. Winantec making a howling error to around the Dunlop curve. And once again, it catching somebody out. Him going to need to pit at the end of this lap just to replace that front wing. But we do have Matej, Vencialo, Eric, Chimera, Camille, and Winantec, the running now of these 6. We will stick with these front 3 just in case there is any particular errors moving forward. But again, these 3 looking to slightly get Chimera in behind. Eric will certainly be looking again to move up the field to try and negate that penalty that he has picked up. As the front 3 do come across the line, all within a second. Following nicely through the first curve and into the S's here. As Chimera in behind will look to try and edge onto the back, but he might just be slightly too far behind. As these S's are taken nice and smoothly, we'll keep an eye out to see if there's any mistakes from these front 3. As Winantec is in the pits to replace those tyres, potentially serve some penalties, and definitely replace that broken front wing. As Eric has slightly lost time off the back of Vencialo in front, but still within that second for when the DRS comes. And oh, a big snap running over the curb there from Eric brings Chimera right back into the battle for P3. And the Alpha Tauri will certainly be smelling blood and potentially a podium in front now. Unbelievable. It doesn't appear like people can be not make mistakes at the minute. It's a very tricky technical circuit that seems to be catching a lot of these drivers out. And I know that on the pit wall for Alfa Romeo at the minute will certainly be rubbing their hands, but Winantec already on those cold tyres has become a cropper at the beginning of the S's. Again, when you come out on cold tyres here in Japan, you really have to be careful over here. Over this initial technical section, because it can just chew you up and spit you out for sure. As we see now how close these two races pretty much are between the two Alfa Romeo teammates, as DRS is enabled on lap 15. And for third between Eric and Chimera, but we'll keep an eye on things just in front here, as we actually can see behind the Alpha Tower he's already made the pass on the Ferrari. We look further back and Winantec, as we mentioned before on those cold tyres, at the hairpin has retired, and a third safety car coming out in this race, leaving us now with only 5 racers. And we have a collision between Chimera and Eric that Eric gets additional penalties for. It just seems to be mistake after mistake. He's letting some of these drivers down, and that's not what you want on such a technical circuit here in Suzuka. But we'll see. Again, I fully expect Eric to have to come into the pits to replace that wing. I fully expect everyone else to continue on from the looks of it. Maybe Venciano pitting, which won't drop him down too much with what's going on. But we'll see. We'll definitely see what's ongoing, as there seem to be little errors all over the place from many of the drivers here today. As we wait for everyone once again and we take another breather. I think the DRS was on for maybe half a lap there. But we will be back behind the safety car in just a second. But we'll try to keep an eye on who will be pitting. Potentially Venciano, unless he's looking to stay out and run these hards to the end. 5 laps older than his teammate though. And now with only 5 drivers remaining, he does. In fact, they are double stacking here at the Alfa Romeos. This could be a horrendous decision. But let us see how much time he's going to be losing as Fitter Chimera does stay out and will lead the race, and all the rest of the drivers do jump in. Some of the penalties being served by the Ferrari will certainly do him a benefit, as you see everyone else come out on fresh mediums. So leading the way from the safety car now will be the Alpha Tauri of Fitter Chimera, followed by Matej in the Alfa Romeo, and Shallow in the second Alfa Romeo, Camel in the Aston, and then Eric in the Ferrari. Let's see just how many penalties he does have left. 8 seconds still there for him. As again on those cold tyres, people pushing and being all over the place, certainly causing some issues. But we shall see if I can get my breath back and we can have, 8-9 laps of mistake-free racing. Everyone will be looking to finish now, as there's some big points on the line here for everybody left in the race. As we wait for Eric just to catch up to the back of the train. And then, because unfortunately broadcast has been put on there, it will just ensure that we are ready to go sooner rather than later. And here we do go. So yeah, a lot of the runners that were higher up, we've had Clapper, who was P2 in qualifying. We've had Winantec, who's been running high, retiring as well. Camelons will be looking. I do believe he had a pretty good race. I will just have a quick look at the results from last time. Yes, in fact, Camel was P4 in the opening race. So we'll be looking to improve on that today. We have Matej, who finished in 3rd in the last race. Again, be looking to better that. But Fitter Crimea, Simon Aberg The Swedish driver who's leading from the front now. Can he hold that front spot with these older hard tyres? Or will everyone just look to reel him in as we see this restart now then? From the Alpha Tauri's perspective, barking everybody up. It's going to start as late as possible. And it's even later than that. Oh my word, as Fitter goes from first to fifth within a space of seconds. Goes across the line without even accelerating there. Hands the lead over to Matej and then almost runs into the... Oh my word, what is going on here? But we do now have a lead being taken over again by the Alfa Romeo of Matej and Fencalo in second, Eric in the Ferrari in third, Camel in the Aston in fourth, and Fitter just looking to almost wake up from the early mistakes that he's made there on that safety car restart. Unbelievable things throughout this race. As we see Eric closing up the gap here on Fencalo, we do have 9 laps remaining of this Japanese Grand Prix. And again, as I mentioned, all we're looking now for is just some mistake-free racing, as this is right in the gearbox here from Eric onto Fencalo. We'll certainly try and keep an eye on it here to see if an overtake will be happening. Going on board with the Ferrari now, coming up to the spoon curve. Keeps things nice and tidy. Getting a good view of the exhaust pipe and the gearbox of the Alfa Romeo. But doesn't get such a good exit. But again, these front three of Matej, Fencalo and Eric all within a second of each other. Let's see where we will end up. In behind, we do have Chimera and Camelons within a second of each other there. But again, they're around 2 seconds back from this battle for first place. And we will stick with this as we come across to start lap 19. Matej first, Fencalo second, Eric third, Camelons in the Aston in fourth, and Fitter Chimera there in the Alpha Tauri in fifth. Sticking with this race for first place, Eric will be looking to try and battle through both of these Alfa Romeos to then try and pull out. It's the only chance, pull out an 8-second gap. The only chance he has for a race win here, but if I know Eric will certainly be pushing as much as possible. So let's see where we do end up. Keeps it together there through the Degner corner, heading up to the hairpin. Does get a little bit squirrely there, but gets to the hairpin nicely. Takes the apex, gets the power down. Does keep it all together. Staying within that 1 second, waiting for DRS to be activated at the end of this lap. As the Alfa Romeo slowly starting to pull away. The Ferrari will certainly be trying to keep them in his sights. Coming out of the spoon curve now. Heading down to the back straight. The fast left-hander before hitting the Casio triangle. Around this last left-hander. Flat in 8th gear. Let's see how we take these last few corners in the Casio triangle. Just looking behind, it's getting real tight in this Alpha Tauri. Looking to make moves on Camelons. As we have Fencalo taking the fastest lap from his teammate, I believe. But DRS is now enabled. Can Eric use it to his advantage? As we have the Alpha Tauri and Aston battling for places in behind for P4 now. Heading up throughout the S's. Ooh, lots of things going on at the moment. Lots of close battles on track, but we will try and stick with this one for the lead while keeping an eye on the battle for fourth. We see Eric again slowly losing a little bit of distance to, a little bit of time to these Alfa Romeos, but still within striking distance as we head up to the hairpin here for the 20th time in this race. Does get a good entrance and exit there, but as does Matej. So Fencalo may be slightly suffering a little bit, but certainly closed down on his teammate quite swiftly. As we enter the spoon curve before the back straight. Heading over the bridge. And through this flat left-hander before entering once again into the Casio triangle. Flat through that left-hander. Keeping an eye on behind. Chimera's still looking to close the gap onto Camelons. in behind. In fact, that gap is opening up a little bit there, so Camel may be turning on those medium tyres. But this battle for first as Matej takes the fastest lap back off Vencalo, his teammate, as we see Vencalo looking to use DRS to close down, but Matej looks to have gotten a great exit out of the Casio triangle. As these three certainly pulling away, this definitely works into the hands of Eric with those 8 seconds of penalties. If he can stick with these two alphas in front, it certainly will help him, from the looks of things, get over that 8 seconds ahead of Camelon. So all depends on where he's going to be looking here, as we can look back to a lot closer now with Fitter Chimera on Camelon through the S's. Let's see if he can continue that through the Degner corner. Goes through the Degner section there, and then we'll look to get a good exit up to the hairpin within 3/10 now of the Aston Martin. We'll see if there's any particular opening, but parts there. We look ahead. It looks like Matej just had a spin in front coming out of the hairpin there. Drops from first down to third, handing his teammate first place, potentially handing Eric higher up on the podium. But again, Matej will be looking to, stay within 8 seconds of the Ferrari to ensure he can get past him. We can stay with this battle for first place now, down to just Vencalo and Eric, the Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari. Let us see if Eric can get past on track. He does take the fastest lap with a pair of fastest laps from the two front runners. That DRS certainly putting in work, making sure he's well ahead going into the first curve. But definitely lower on battery than Vencalo, who's tucking in behind through these S's. As we'll see, will anyone make any errors as we head around the final part of the S's through to the Dunlop curve here at the left. Now heading down to the Degner curves 8 and 9 for the 22nd time. Just over 5 laps remaining. Little bit wide there from the Ferrari, and such a better exit there from Vencalo in the Alfa Romeo, looking to attack in this hairpin as he looks to cut back underneath. Not quite got the drive to carry on going, but Vencalo will certainly keep the pressure on the Ferrari in front. The last thing he wants to do is let him get away, because that will just ensure that he's got bragging rights on track, even with those particular penalties. Big snap of overtaking though from Vencalo. Opens that gap now up to 1.4, 1.5 seconds. Does bring Matej in behind now within DRS. Takes all of the pressure off the Ferrari in front, who again will now look to try and build that gap in behind. You know, it's been quite close between the three of them, and asking to get an 8-second gap in the next 4 or 5 laps will certainly be a big ask, but I'm sure Eric will get his head down in that Ferrari and look to keep pushing and pushing and pushing on. At the minute, he's looking like a net P3, but if he can continue to improve, continue to expand that gap, if there's any more big mistakes from him in behind us, we see Fitter, Chimera and Camelons swapping places for P4. Again, to try and close down that gap in front. It could be a podium place here if they can start lapping faster than our current race leader in the Ferrari. Eric, with those 8 seconds of penalties, that net time could prove big for Fitter and for Camel, but they need to potentially start working together to try and close this gap down. We'll go back to the current battle between the Alfa Romeo teammates of Matej and Vencalo. We'll be looking to again potentially work together so Eric doesn't disappear down the road. But that gap now from first to second, now 1.7 seconds. From the looks of things, it doesn't look like it's going to be quite enough to secure this net race victory for Eric with those penalties in hand. But as I mentioned, he certainly will be looking to get his head down and try his best to do so. As we have a look in behind now at the Aston, trying to close the gap down onto Chimera in the Alpha Tauri. Once we do get to the DRS section of the main straight, as lap 24 of 27 has been started here. Will the gap be closed by Matej enough to make an overtake on Vencialo? Down to 1.6. Less than a tenth of a second now, but still settles in behind. Likely not wanting to challenge his teammate. But again, is that the right decision if they want to try and wheel in Eric in front? Or are they content to just be happy with the net positions from the penalties? As Camelons has dropped back a little bit there from Fitter Chimera. So it is this battle that is the closest and looks likely to be the battle for the race win. Here as we are on lap 24, heading under the bridge here with Matej, who's currently in third, chasing down his teammate in second. Eric is currently first on track, but with those 8 seconds of penalties, these alphas will likely be 1 and 2, barring any extra mistakes, as the gap is not widening anywhere near enough. So we will stick with this battle between Matej and Vencialo. We'll see if the pit wall is allowing them to race, or whether they're talking and looking to just try and conserve and make sure that no mistakes are made, as that is a much better exit from Matej, but again, not particularly challenged for Vencialo. Matej has been the fastest of the two over qualifying and generally throughout the race. But again, that mistake did drop him back earlier. We'll see if he can close that down on track. In fact, it certainly looks like potentially just let by or a mistake from Vencialo, because that gap now in front as we start lap 25. Eric is in front by 3.2 seconds. He needs to get that up to 8 if he does want this race win. At the minute, it's going to be net P3. So it's Matej in second on track with Vencialo in third. Fitter Chimera in the Alpha Tauri in fourth. And Camel fifth and final runner on track on this chaotic Japanese Xbox Origin Grand Prix. As we see this gap in front tick down, is Matej looking to close this gap to Eric down and potentially win on track? I'm sure that will be have some certain bragging rights for the Alfa Romeo driver, as that gap now is down to 2.5 seconds from 3.5. Potentially a little bit of an error from Eric, but we'll certainly see if this gap continues to close. It looks like these Alfa Romeos have settled into this race, and Matej is slowly pulling Vencialo along to ensure that this gap is kept nice and close. But again, he has opened ever so slightly as we go around the spoon curve to now 2.67 seconds. We can go to our race leader just to see if there are any particular mistakes. We will ride on board with him as he enters the Casio Triangle for the 25th time before starting lap 26. And this will be 2 laps to go for the Ferrari driver here in Japan. So it's Eric on track leading from Matej, but Vencialo in behind, potentially challenging his teammate down to the first curve. Does get squeezed a little bit, but still plenty of room left. They're side by side through the first curve, we can see, but Matej does come out slightly on top, but Vencialo certainly not stopping there as the S's does rightfully settle in behind, but it seems like just being dragged along, he wasn't too happy to be, and he's now looking to battle for what is looking like the net win. In behind, Chimera and Camelons are in 4th and 5th, and it doesn't look like they've dropped back enough that will likely be their finishing positions, barring any race issues or further incident. We'll stay with Vencialo to see if he does make another attempt at passing his teammate, but he's likely only going to have one more opportunity with DRS on that home straight, as we will be starting our final lap. But our race leader at the minute on track is Eric in the Ferrari, who runs slightly wide coming out, but no extra penalties given there. He's got to, at the end of the day, he's got to try and make 5 seconds in one lap. Unfortunately, I think it will be in vain, but he will be finishing first on track as he enters the Casio Triangle for the second to last time. Comes around this right hand side, crosses the start finish line to start the final lap of this Japanese Grand Prix. In behind, we'll keep an eye on Vencialo, see if he can close that gap down. Nowhere near as close as it was the lap before, and again looks to be just settling in behind his teammate now. So we have Eric in first on track, with Matej in the Alfa Romeo in third, Vencialo in the second Matej in second, Vencialo in third, Fitter Chimera in the Alpha Tower in P4, and Camelons in P5, the last remaining runner in this race. We'll quickly have a look. Vencialo getting very close to his teammate again here, within 2 tenths. Will he be looking to make a potential dive at the hairpin? One of the second to last hard braking point for him. As he doesn't send it up there again, with it being teammates. Certainly doesn't want to be taking both of them out of this race and handing this race win to the Ferrari in front. Speaking of the Ferrari, he is just going around the spoon curve for the last time. Heading down the back straight to the final left hand. Runs very wide coming out of the spoon curve. Keeping an eye on times behind, about 3 tenths behind from Vencialo, but that is slightly lowering. I will, in fact, quickly just head back to that before going to Eric to cross the line. But it doesn't appear. One last hard braking chance for Vencialo. Not quite enough. Good work there from Matej to not let it pass, but Eric does cross the line first. There's an unserved drive-through penalty potentially. Now in first, we have Vencialo, who's Jakub, in the second Alfa Romeo to make a 1-2. Third, we have Eric in the Ferrari, followed by Simon Aberg, who was fifth of Chimera in the Alpha Tauri in 4, and then Camille in the Aston Martin in P5. Such an eventful race there, and a lot to certainly bring up as we see them on the podium here. And Matej again looking to raise that trophy. Now we will look to get a chat with our podium finishers in just a second. But there is your final lineup. Matej in P1, Vencialo in P2, Eric with fastest lap in P3. We have Fitter Chimera in P4 and Camelons in P5. And 5 DNFs throughout this race. So allow me just to make sure we do get everything set up over here. Over to the post-race interview room in just a second. I'm just trying to keep an eye on when people are popping in.
Hi.
Hi there, Eric. How are you doing today? It was
not too good because it was a potential to win, but I'm still not giving up because this 5 seconds was from collision behind the safety.
Okay.
With only 3 seconds, I'm winning. So I still hope to get it, but we will see.
Yep.
At the end, it was a hell of a race.
It was certainly a bit of a chaotic race throughout there, and it wasn't just yourself that was having issues. You know, I think there was only half of the field that ended up finishing. And like lots of different snaps of oversteer throughout from everyone. Were you having any issues through any of the curves or the S's curves at all throughout the race? Or did you find that you were able to settle in nicely?
Exactly. It was a chaotic race, and the most important thing was to drive your own, don't look to anybody else, and it pay off. We are on the podium again, so I'm happy, and we will see if we can get a win.
No, that's for sure. It's definitely a good podium again after finishing second in that opening race. Certainly puts the pressure, but again, we'll get that report through and we'll see what can certainly happen for it. But thanks very much for the chat there, Eric. I do believe we have Matej, who at the minute is our race winner. Matej, how do you feel like that race went for you?
Well, the race was a disaster from my side, to be fair. But yeah, I don't know where I lost all my pace from qualifying, because out of nowhere, Valencio was right behind me and he was faster throughout the race. I don't know how I got the win, but yeah, it was a disaster from my side.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of little snaps. I think it was a few laps before the end where yourself and your teammate were comfortably ahead of Eric, keeping him at bay there? Was there a slight snap of oversteer around the Degner curve or the Dunlop corner? I wasn't too sure. I didn't quite catch that on camera, unfortunately.
Oh, I think it was that I got on the power too early,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just couldn't manage it and just lost it.
It's no problem. It certainly does happen sometimes. But the minute it is P1 for you, obviously it can change with any particular reviews or reports or anything like that. But congratulations on your win.
Thank you, but
And
yeah, I'm not happy.
no, I don't think there'll be many people too happy at the moment with only half the field finishing. But yeah, I hope to see you again next week for the next race in Spain.
Thank you very much.
No problem at all. So there we have it. Our first and third place finishers there. Just making sure that we don't have anyone else. It doesn't appear like second has come in. But that will be it for our coverage of the Xbox Origin Japanese Grand Prix Race 2. Certainly an eventful race. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the 12th. Same time at 7 o'clock when we will be here for the Spanish Grand Prix. Again, a lot of extra races available across multiple tiers here on ERL throughout the weekend. My name's been David Booker, and once again, I will see you all next week.